Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Clayton's hands shook as he reached for the epitome of femininity, his sister's iconic dress in the subdued radiance of the nightlight. The crimson fabric seemed to pulse with its own allure, beckoning him closer. He felt a thrill as he caressed the silky material, his heart pounding with anticipation. With a mix of apprehension and delight, Clayton raised the dress towards him, drawn to its shimmering allure in the muted light. Just as he guided the fabric over his head, a sound froze him mid-motion. The door to his sanctuary slowly creaked open. Clayton stood motionless, exposed, as Sarah, his sister, appeared at the entrance, her eyes reflecting a mixture of astonishment and unspoken questions. "Clayton, can you explain what's happening here?" Sarah's tone, surprisingly devoid of condemnation, resonated through the room. Clayton began to stutter, his face ablaze with embarrassment. "I was just—" Sarah stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "It's okay," she said, a gentle smile spreading across her face. "You don't have to explain." Clayton's shoulders sagged with relief. "You're not mad?" "Of course not," Sarah replied, moving closer. She reached out, adjusting the strap that had slipped off Clayton's shoulder. "But if you're going to wear my clothes, we should at least make sure they fit properly." A nervous laugh escaped Clayton's lips. "I don't even know what I'm doing." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Well then, looks like you need a teacher." She gestured for Clayton to sit at her vanity. "First lesson, makeup." Over the next hour, Sarah guided Clayton through the basics of foundation, concealer, and powder. She demonstrated how to apply eyeshadow, showing him how to blend colors for a natural look. "Now for the lips," Sarah said, holding up a tube of red lipstick that matched the dress perfectly. "Pucker up!" Clayton obeyed, his heart fluttering as Sarah carefully painted his lips. When she finished, she stepped back, admiring her handiwork. "Take a look," she said, turning Clayton to face the mirror. He gasped. The person staring back at him was beautiful, feminine, everything he'd secretly longed to be. "Is that really me?" Sarah squeezed his shoulder. "It is, and it's just the beginning." Over the next few weekends, Sarah continued to teach Clayton, who decided to go by Andrea when dressed, everything she knew about being a woman. They practiced walking in heels, giggling as Andrea tottered around the bedroom like a newborn fawn. "Heel to toe," Sarah instructed, demonstrating the proper gait. "And don't forget to swing your hips a little." Andrea mimicked her sister's movements, gradually gaining confidence with each step. Soon, she was gliding across the room with unexpected grace. "You're a natural!" Sarah exclaimed, clapping her hands in delight. As Andrea's skills improved, so did her wardrobe. Sarah took her shopping, helping her select flattering pieces that suited her new feminine persona. "Every woman needs a good sundress," Sarah said, holding up a pale yellow frock adorned with delicate daisies. "It's perfect for summer picnics or casual outings." Andrea ran her fingers over the soft cotton. "It's beautiful," she murmured. They spent hours in the dressing room, Andrea trying on outfit after outfit, while Sarah offered advice and encouragement. By the end of the day, Andrea had a closet full of floral sundresses, flowing skirts, and feminine blouses. As weeks turned into months, Andrea's style evolved. Sarah introduced her to more sophisticated pieces, tailored blazers, pencil skirts, and elegant evening gowns. They practiced different makeup techniques, experimenting with bold, smoky eyes and subtle nude looks. One evening, as they prepared for a night out, Sarah presented Andrea with a gift. "I thought you might like this," she said, handing over a small rectangular box. Andrea opened it to find a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant in the shape of a butterfly. Tears welled up in her eyes. "It's perfect," she whispered. Sarah fastened the necklace around Andrea's neck, the cool metal settling against her skin. "You've come so far," Sarah said, her voice filled with pride. "You've transformed, just like a butterfly." As they stood side by side in front of the full-length mirror, Andrea marveled at her reflection. She wore a deep blue cocktail dress that hugged her curves, accentuated by silver heels and the new necklace. Her brown hair, now long enough to style, was swept into an elegant updo. "I never thought I could look like this," Andrea said, her voice filled with wonder. Sarah linked her arm through her sister's. "You always had it in you. I just helped you find it." Their bond had grown stronger through this journey. Sarah wasn't just Andrea's sister anymore. She was her confidant, her mentor, and her closest friend. Together, they'd unlocked a part of Andrea that had been hidden away for so long. As they prepared to leave for their evening out, Andrea paused at the door. "Sarah," she said, turning to face her sister. "Thank you. For everything." Sarah pulled her into a tight hug. "That's what sisters are for," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. Hand in hand, they stepped out into the night, ready to face the world together. Andrea stood tall, confidence radiating from her every movement. She was no longer Clayton pretending to be someone else. She was Andrea, finally embracing her true self. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of new experiences for Andrea. With Sarah by her side, she began to venture out into the world, testing the waters of her newfound identity. Their first outing was to a small cafe on the outskirts of town. Andrea's hands shook as she applied her lipstick in the car's rearview mirror, a soft pink shade that Sarah had assured her was perfect for a casual daytime look. "Remember," Sarah said, giving Andrea's hand a reassuring squeeze. "Confidence is key. You look amazing, and you deserve to be here just as much as anyone else." Andrea nodded, taking a deep breath. She smoothed down her floral sundress, the fabric cool against her skin. As they walked into the cafe, she focused on the click of her low heels against the tile floor, the way Sarah had taught her to walk with poise and grace. To Andrea's surprise and delight, no one gave her a second glance. She and Sarah found a table by the window, ordered their coffees, and spent the afternoon chatting and people-watching. It felt so normal, so right. As they left the cafe, Andrea couldn't stop smiling. "I did it," she said, a hint of wonder in her voice. Sarah beamed with pride. "You certainly did, and this is just the beginning." True to Sarah's words, that afternoon at the cafe was just the start of Andrea's journey into the world. They went shopping at the mall, Andrea growing more comfortable with each successful interaction. They attended art galleries, where Andrea found herself drawn to paintings of strong, feminine figures. They even went to the movies, Andrea reveling in the simple pleasure of wearing a pretty dress and enjoying a romantic comedy. With each outing, Andrea's confidence grew. She began to experiment more with her style, no longer relying solely on Sarah's guidance. One day, She surprised her sister by appearing in a bold red pantsuit, her brown hair styled in loose waves. Sarah's eyebrows shot up in appreciation. "Well, look at you! Someone's been paying attention to fashion magazines." Andrea struck a playful pose. "What can I say? I had a good teacher." As Andrea became more comfortable in her feminine identity, she and Sarah started discussing the possibility of her transitioning more permanently. It was a big step, one that filled Andrea with both excitement and trepidation. "I want this," Andrea said one evening as they sat on Sarah's bed, flipping through fashion magazines. "I want to be Andrea all the time, not just on weekends, but I'm scared." Sarah set aside her magazine, giving Andrea her full attention. "What are you afraid of?" Andrea sighed, running her fingers through her brown hair. "Everything. Telling our parents, dealing with work, the medical aspects of transitioning. What if I'm not strong enough?" Sarah took Andrea's hands in hers. "Listen to me. You are one of the strongest people I know. Look at how far you've come already, and you won't be doing this alone. I'll be with you every step of the way." Tears welled up in Andrea's eyes. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Well, lucky for you, you'll never have to find out," Sarah said with a wink. Over the next few months, Andrea began the process of transitioning. She started hormone therapy, watching with a mixture of anxiety and excitement as her body slowly began to change. Sarah was there for every milestone, celebrating each small victory. One of the biggest challenges was coming out to their parents. Andrea agonized over how to tell them, writing and rewriting a letter until the paper was crumpled and tear-stained. "Maybe this is a mistake," Andrea said, pacing Sarah's bedroom in a pair of comfortable leggings and an oversized sweater. "Maybe I should just forget the whole thing." Sarah stood up, placing her hands on Andrea's shoulders to stop her pacing. "Andrea, look at me. You are not making a mistake. This is who you are. Our parents love you, and that's not going to change." With Sarah's encouragement, Andrea finally found the courage to sit down with their parents. The conversation was emotional and at times difficult, but ultimately, their parents expressed their love and support. "We just want you to be happy," their mother said, pulling Andrea into a tight hug. "And if this is what makes you happy, then we're behind you 100%. As Andrea's transition progressed, she faced the challenge of coming out at work. She'd been with the same company for years as Clayton, and the thought of revealing her true self to her colleagues was daunting. Sarah helped her prepare for the conversation with her boss, role-playing various scenarios and helping Andrea articulate her needs and expectations. When the day finally came, Andrea walked into her boss's office in a conservative black dress, her brown hair neatly styled in a professional bob. To Andrea's relief, her boss was understanding and supportive. They worked together to create a plan for Andrea's transition in the workplace, including how to inform her coworkers and clients. The day Andrea went to work as herself for the first time, Sarah insisted on driving her. "For moral support," she said, squeezing Andrea's hand as they pulled into the parking lot. Andrea took a deep breath, smoothing down her navy blue blazer. "Here goes nothing," she said, stepping out of the car with as much confidence as she could muster. That evening, when Sarah picked her up, Andrea practically bounced into the car. "It went so well," she exclaimed. "Everyone was so kind and supportive. I can't believe I was so worried." Sarah grinned. "I told you you could do it. I'm so proud of you, sis." As the months passed, Andrea's transition became more complete. She underwent facial feminization surgery, a procedure that Sarah researched extensively to ensure Andrea was getting the best care possible. When the bandages came off, Andrea cried tears of joy at her reflection. "I finally look on the outside the way I've always felt on the inside," she said, touching her face gently. Sarah hugged her tightly. "You've always been beautiful, Andrea. Now everyone else can see it too." With each passing day, Andrea grew more comfortable in her skin. She no longer second-guessed herself when getting dressed in the morning or applying her makeup. She walked with confidence, her head held high. One sunny afternoon, as they strolled through the park, Sarah linked her arm through Andrea's. "Do you remember that first night I caught you in my red dress?" she asked. Andrea laughed. "How could I forget? I was terrified you'd hate me." Sarah shook her head. "I could never hate you. I'm just glad I was able to help you become who you were always meant to be." Andrea stopped walking, turning to face her sister. "Sarah, I don't think I've ever properly thanked you for everything you've done for me. You've been my rock through this entire journey. I wouldn't be here, living as my true self, if it wasn't for you." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. "Oh, Andrea, you don't need to thank me. Seeing you happy and confident, living your best life, that's all the thanks I need." The sisters embraced, holding each other tight. As they continued their walk, Andrea reflected on how far she'd come. From those first tentative steps in Sarah's red dress to fully embracing her identity as Andrea, it had been a challenging but ultimately rewarding journey. She knew there would still be obstacles to face, but with Sarah by her side, Andrea felt ready for anything. She was finally, truly herself, and she couldn't wait to see what the future held. As they neared the end of their walk, Sarah suddenly grabbed Andrea's hand. "I almost forgot. I have a surprise for you." Andrea raised an eyebrow. "A surprise? What kind of surprise?" Sarah's eyes twinkled mischievously. "You'll see. Come on." They hurried back to Sarah's car, Andrea's curiosity growing with each passing minute. As they drove, Sarah refused to give any hints, simply smiling secretively whenever Andrea asked where they were going. Finally, they pulled up in front of a boutique Andrea had never seen before. The window display showcased an array of elegant evening gowns, each more beautiful than the last. "Sarah, what is this?" Andrea asked, her voice filled with wonder. Sarah grinned. "Well, remember how you always said you wished you could have had a proper prom experience as yourself? I thought it was time to rectify that." Andrea's eyes widened. "You didn't. I did," Sarah said, practically bouncing with excitement. "I've arranged a small gathering with some of our closest friends. It's not exactly prom, but it's a chance for you to get all dressed up and dance the night away as your true self." Tears welled up in Andrea's eyes. "Sarah, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet," Sarah replied, leading her into the boutique. "First, let's find you the perfect dress." They spent the next hour trying on gowns, with Andrea modeling each one for Sarah. There were sleek, form-fitting dresses that hugged every curve, ball gowns with voluminous skirts that made Andrea feel like a princess, and everything in between. Finally, Andrea emerged from the dressing room in a floor-length emerald green gown. The bodice was adorned with delicate beadwork that caught the light, and the skirt flowed gracefully around her legs. Sarah gasped. "Andrea, that's the one! You look absolutely stunning!" Andrea turned to look at herself in the full-length mirror. The green of the dress complemented her brown hair perfectly, and the cut accentuated her figure in all the right ways. For a moment, she was transported back to her teenage years imagining what it would have been like to attend prom as her true self. "It's perfect," Andrea whispered, running her hands over the soft fabric. With the dress chosen, they moved on to accessories. Sarah helped Andrea select a pair of silver heels and a clutch that matched the beadwork on the dress. As a final touch, Sarah presented Andrea with a small box. "I thought you might want to wear this," she said softly. Andrea opened the box to find the silver butterfly necklace Sarah had given her months ago. She touched it gently, remembering how far she'd come since then. "It's perfect," Andrea said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything." The night of the party arrived, and Andrea felt a flutter of nerves as she and Sarah got ready together. Sarah helped her style her brown hair into an elegant updo, securing it with glittering pins. As Andrea applied the finishing touches to her makeup, Sarah appeared behind her, already dressed in a beautiful royal blue gown. "Are you ready?" Sarah asked, squeezing Andrea's shoulders gently. Andrea took a deep breath, looking at her reflection one last time. The woman staring back at her was confident, beautiful, and most importantly, true to herself. "I'm ready," she said, standing up. They arrived at the venue, a small ballroom decorated with twinkling lights and flowing fabrics. As they entered, Andrea was greeted by the smiling faces of her friends and loved ones, all dressed in their finest attire. The evening was everything Andrea had ever dreamed of, and more. She danced with abandon, laughed with her friends, and even shared a touching moment with her parents, who beamed with pride as they watched their daughter twirl on the dance floor. As the night drew to a close, Sarah found Andrea by the punch bowl, her cheeks flushed from dancing. "So," Sarah said, bumping Andrea's shoulder playfully, "was it everything you hoped it would be?" Andrea's face broke into a radiant smile. "It was more than I ever could have imagined. Sarah, I don't know how I can ever thank you enough." Sarah pulled her sister into a tight hug. "Seeing you this happy is all the thanks I need. I love you, Andrea." "I love you too, Sarah," Andrea replied, her voice muffled against her sister's shoulder. As they pulled apart, Andrea looked around the room, taking in the scene one last time. This night, this celebration of her true self, was the culmination of a journey that had begun with a borrowed red dress and a sister's unconditional love. Andrea knew that her journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But with Sarah by her side and the love and support of her friends and family, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the last song of the night began to play, Andrea grabbed Sarah's hand. "Come on," she said, pulling her sister onto the dance floor. "Let's dance." And so they did, two sisters laughing and twirling under the twinkling lights, celebrating not just Andrea's transformation, but the unbreakable bond between them. It was a perfect ending to one chapter of Andrea's life, and a beautiful beginning to the next.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!